Welcome, everybody, back to another edition of Let's Take 5, the podcast where we take one of the greats of cinema and discuss their excellence and range. My name is Eric Martindale.
I'm Austin Luger.
And for all of you tuning in that have heard me talk about Gene Kelly, I promise you I didn't put greats in quotes when I gave that introduction. The previous films we've reviewed so far on this 5 are An American in Paris, Singin in the Rain, It's Always Fair Weather. Today we're talking about The Young Girls of Rochefort. I'm going to screw that up. And we'll wrap it up with Xanadu. But today we are talking about The Young Girls of Rochefort. This is a 1967 film that lost an Academy Award to Oliver, like every film we ever review on this podcast. It was directed by Jacques Demy. It follows these two young girls in Rochefort. One's a singer, one's a piano player. Basically, they're stuck. They're tired of their provincial life. They want to move to Paris, and they want to find love there, right? But there's full cast. This is like the Nashville of like French musicals, because you have so many different characters in the movie that are affecting the plot in various different ways. There's a circus that has just come into town. We meet the characters from the circus. The two young girls, we meet their mom. Their mom runs a French fry shop. We end up running into Gene Kelly in this film and falls in love with one of the characters. You got a young painter-poet who's a big character. You have people pursuing these girls who are rather beautiful. You even have their young brother that is continually mistaken for their son, and they're always mistaken for their mother because they all are so very good looking. This is a movie in general, I would say, about love, about dreams, about misconnections and coming together. The way I was kind of thinking about this movie as I was seeing it is if Wes Anderson was French.
And boy, he wishes he was.
And if he did a musical, and he was directing in 1967, this would be very similar to the product he would come up with. There would definitely be something trying to make you cry out of sadness somewhere in the film, probably. But this is this type of product that he had. Did I do a reasonable job of summing up this film?
Yeah, I mean this is something that's interesting because Gene Kelly is a small role in this. I'd say maybe he only has like 6-7 scenes in 2 hours, but it's a film that is so much about like MGM musicals, because Jacques Demy is a musical director in France. I've seen 4 of his films now. This one and The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, both starring Catherine Deneuve, are his most famous. And this is the one that is entirely about just optimism and color and presentation and fun and love and looking for love. And it's so contagious in this movie because it's such... You didn't realize that these Hollywood musicals had a different way of doing them, because even within different studios, they all still have the same feel of like, oh, this is classic Hollywood musical. And to have a French take on it just feels brand new.
Yeah,
I'm not having him represent all of France.
Very fresh.
This is one of these musicals. And I mean, obviously Gene Kelly is essentially playing himself, or he's playing the Gene Kelly character in this. And with this young sailor... that is kind of one of the most iconic roles of Gene Kelly on The Town, which again we should have done first, but messed up. But it's these elements.
Well, I think there's some elements with that character of An American in Paris as well.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Granted, obviously he's not American; he is French in the film, but still, he had like a young Gene Kelly vibe anyway, regardless.
And it's so delightful, and the songs are so catchy and so wonderful. Every color just like pops like crazy. There is no dark color in this. Everyone is... It's always fun when characters kind of meet up because you realize, oh, these 4 characters are all wearing a perfectly different color. And... Yeah,
everything is uniformed, or I guess the lack thereof, but everything feels like a matching outfit. The whole town feels like a matching outfit. One of the constraints I feel like this movie kind of broke out of, like those early Hollywood soundstage musicals, was that this movie never felt confined. The town is the setting, and it's a real town, the real town square. You know, you get into some of the Gene Kelly musicals we watched earlier, where you have these big bombastic things that are all really beautiful and all really pretty, but most of the time that's on a soundstage, and it could feel a little claustrophobic when it's up against something like this. In and of itself, it looks great, and even if it doesn't look like the city necessarily, sometimes we can suspend our disbelief and accept it as such. With this, it felt like the camera had some room to breathe. And you feel like kind of like in some ways the same type of feelings I got from like Before Sunrise when we talk about it, is you almost feel like you can walk the town after this musical because you feel like you know it so well. You revisit some of the same places many times. You go by some of the same places many times. And if you don't recognize the building, you'll recognize the characters that hang out there.
Don't you want to hang out at that shop?
Yeah, the fry shop, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it has like a funhouse sort of feel to it. It's really appealing to the eye, and most of the characters are really cool too. Do you want to jump in somewhere? Because I was moving to another thought there and thought that's going to take 3 or 4 minutes.
Well, so. No, I just want to expand with talk about the scenery kind of being so open. I think it also feels thematically that way, because the worst musicals sometimes have you be in this world and then the song is so jarring because it doesn't feel like the same world. I don't think that's the case for all 3 we've done this time, because those all do feel like a world where you can sing, but never felt as seamlessly as this, because when anyone sings, this is just how this universe works so perfectly that it almost isn't even an extended metaphor moment. This is just it. And it's accepted. I mean, this is such an optimistic movie. When you have the sailor character, who represents in my mind so much of how much this film works, he's just the new guy in town. He's on shore leave. He's going to stop being a sailor like in a week or so, something really soon. And all he just wants to do is he's just got to find love, man. And the whole place is like, I mean, yeah, he's a kid, but this is great. Well, I'm all for the sailor dancing around right now.
One thing that really worked, and a big part of it probably had to do with such a large cast. We never got tired of any of the characters singing. I mean, obviously now at this point I'm on the record for saying part of my problem with the previous films that we did, and if I really had to narrow it down, other than Gene Kelly's always winking at the camera, my biggest problem was that I did not feel like the songs were placed well. I always felt like they were singing, and I've said this a million times, to emphasize the plot rather than to move it forward or to enrich the characters. Every song sang in this told me something I didn't know about the people. They told me, or they moved the plot forward. I mean, it was literally the only circumstance I can think where that wasn't the case was when a song was repeated. But even in that instance, they were auditioning. So, like, I felt like I knew these characters through their songs, whereas in something like, what else do I know about the characters after they sing Good Morning and Sing in the Rain? I don't know, or Moses Supposes. I know exactly what I knew about them before. This made me feel like, oh, wow, great. And when Gene Kelly's not just the focus, you never run out of steam, because we have so many different characters to play with, and so we can always tell something new about somebody else when we get tired of this person. And I just thought that works seamlessly and really well. And you're right. It just, when it comes out of nowhere, it feels like, wow, that doesn't feel out of place. This feels like how this world works.
What's one of your favorite examples of that?
Oh, okay. Wow, you really put me on the spot there. I guess my favorite example of that would probably be... okay, I'll give you an example. I will, because you asked for one. The guy that owns the music shop, the music store. This is a relatively minor character by comparison to the rest of the cast. Maybe the most minor. You learn so much about him in his song. The tragedy of losing the love that he had that moved to Mexico with some other person, the why she did it, we learn why, and through that song we see him falling in love with what he doesn't know was his old lover's daughter, because he's seeing her through his eyes. There's so much emoted by that song, and I believe that's the only song he sings in the movie. I mean, he may sing later, but we get in pockets here, we're hit with these things where I'm learning more about these people. I'm learning more about Rochefort and its inhabitants. It never felt like we're just singing to because it's been too long, we need a song now.
Right.
You know, that didn't work. Whereas I feel like in the previous musicals, we were bombarded with that.
And it's funny because I haven't seen the Young of Rochefort for a while, but I believe that movie actually is wall-to-wall music. I thought this one was, but I realized my memory was that the world is always singing.
Yeah.
Like in Young Girls of Rochefort, they sing about like brushing their teeth. Like it's their day in song. But this one, I mean, like
there's a place for that too.
Oh, absolutely.
I almost feel like that's better than just singing for no reason out of nowhere.
It's to me it's experimentation in ways. I just really enjoyed just watching the titular girls when they're talking about these Gemini sisters that they are. It's so charming, and I keep forgetting they are real life sisters. Because Catherine Deneuve is now still so famous, one of the most like famous people in the world, actress-wise. And they're so charming. It's like they have the strength of them as this kind of double act is such a powerful force that when you have these other two guys who are, you know, still the male duo, they don't have that same kind of presence. They don't have the exact same like walking in step that perhaps two sisters can do better than two actors having known each other their whole lives. I'm also distracted because one of those guys from West Side Story, I've never seen him in anything else before. George Chakiris. You've seen West Side Story,
yeah?
Right?
I've seen West Side Story.
He's the head of the Sharks.
Okay.
And this is before that. So to hear him as, you know, the Puerto Rican sort of antagonist of West Side Story, singing French, you know, 10 years later.
No. I didn't see that. I haven't seen West Side Story in a very long time. I know you saw it fairly recently in theaters, and I know you love it very much. It's very, very good.
Couldn't figure out a way to make it into a musical vibe.
But and I think using those two guys as sort of a chief example there about learning about characters in this town, like, you know, I felt like if we were to Hollywood this up a little bit, those guys, we would have ended up having some reason to hate them or something. But it never comes out that way. They're just, I mean, well, their whole goal is to get laid. I mean, that's literally their whole goal throughout the film.
Which is the plot of On the Town by Gene Kelly. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Right. So you have these guys here, and like that's not. Where do you go from there? Like, what do you do with it? And really, actually, they kind of work as comic relief because they show up trying to get laid and they don't.
Yeah.
And you don't. They sing very nice songs. They have very wonderful French things to say. You know, they do a great job, and you end up liking them. It's kind of interesting. Everyone's screen time's divided up in such a way that I was just ready to check in on them, and then they'd show up. And I don't mean them specifically. I mean, you know, everybody. Not just the two girls who are my favorite characters in the film. And I can't, you know, I always say that it's like, who's the protagonist of this film? Like, I was kind of thinking that, like, if there is one person, it's almost impossible to separate those sisters.
Yeah.
And you know, it's great. We haven't talked about Gene Kelly in this film.
Well, I'll save it. I was setting the world.
Okay, so before we talk about Gene Kelly, and I know I've talked a lot, I just want to say, if I had a problem with this film, I never really got a sense of time. This movie does pop up title cards randomly. It says Sunday, but it's like, wait a minute. So that first day must have been like 48 hours because I'm pretty sure the kid got dropped off and picked up from school twice. So like that kind of, I was just trying to figure out like, okay, where we are in a day. It seems a very, very minor complaint, but and that one of the people they know is a serial killer and everyone makes jokes about it. That was weird.
My strange complaint about this film seems like a compliment because I've seen it twice now, and I still cannot write out the entire plot of this film because I just kind of kick my feet up and enjoy it so much that I just kind of smile and forget what's happening for a lot of it. And that is weird, but like there's something about that because yesterday on the Immortals, we discussed the film North by Northwest, and I mentioned in that episode that how I watched that with Sarah. And it's a whole, you know, convoluted, delightful Hitchcock spy thriller. But the whole movie begins because Cary Grant snaps his finger for the bellboy when the bellboy's looking for what the bad guys think is a spy. He's trying to make a phone call. That's it. And maybe we'll watch that film and not recognize that is the moment the plot started. But you're just kind of caught up in the ride of it all. That you don't actually question, wait, why do they think he's Kaplan kind of thing? That's kind of for me where I'm like, I just look at the parade now. This is great.
Yeah.
I'm overjoyed. What's happening in the plot now? I don't know. It's great. Sailor's back.
Well, most of it, I guess, is just the waiting to see if the people get together, because you have the people trying to fall in love with the people that are trying to fall in love with them, but they keep missing each other, all like P.T. Anderson film or something like that. Mm-hmm. It almost goes on a little too long, because it's like, okay, how long can you stretch this out?
Right.
If you think about it too much, but chances are you're not going to be.
And not all the films are like that, which I think is so interesting. This isn't a Demy trait. This is Demy doing Hollywood, much like how La La Land was doing a similar thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are commenting on the musicals of past from a different lens. La La Land's still from the guy who made Whiplash. He doesn't make the same film every time, and neither does Demy. So this was him actively doing these kind of Hollywood things in a very, very, very positive light. He isn't like bringing them down. And it is like that in Hollywood films, right? You see who the main guy is, who the main girl is, and they're going to get married by the end, probably. Mm-hmm. And this works a bit better, because I think when a musical like that, or any sort of heightened story works, is that you are still excited to see the steps. You know Spider-Man's going to beat the guy at the end, but you're excited to see him build up confidence and punch him in New York.
Sure.
I don't know. So I think to have... It's praising the world that you can enter momentarily for this kind of thing. And then it, of course, puts a lantern on it when they have Gene Kelly actually appear. Not as Gene Kelly. He's not an actor in this movie. He's an American who is dubbed very notably, I think. Yeah, he was dubbed?
I didn't know he was dubbed.
I mean, I could be crazy. I did not look
I thought he spoke fluent French.
I could be... It didn't sound like him at all.
Oh, okay.
But his lips were perfectly in sync. I just assumed he wasn't singing.
Well, someone's pulling their hair out right now. I thought he spoke French. I definitely know that he spoke... It was either fluent German or fluent French. It was one of the two. And since
he made American in Paris?
Yeah, and because he was... I don't think he was dubbed, dude.
I would be... Happy
to be wrong.
I will look it up by the next week.
We'll dress it up in the wrap up.
I just always watch it and be like, oh, because he just doesn't sound like him, because he has a very particular voice. And it's fun because he's older now. I mean, this is 10 years after Toys Fairweather, and still moves great. And he's a very side character, but it is noticeable that Gene Kelly is here, and it's really sweet. Like, he's not stealing the camera from himself.
No, he's not. And it's more exciting. I mean, I still think that the way she falls in love with him is ridiculous, but it kind of works in this whimsical sort of...
Everyone's ridiculous.
Everyone's ridiculous in this. Because they literally just make eye contact.
Yeah. And now he's going to learn the secrets of the songs. He's going to study while driving.
Yeah, exactly. He looks at her, he cracks a Gene Kelly smile, and then she falls in love with him like every woman that came before. But in this movie, again, it kind of works because the whimsical nature of this whole movie feels like fantasy when you're watching it anyway. So like it really does work, and it kind of works in a couple different ways here. I think him being Gene Kelly, I'm surprised to say this, actually really works for this film, because when he's not there, you're waiting for him to show up again. You know, it works as sort of an event, and I like him like that because the event is it's Gene Kelly, right? So, you see a movie like, and I can't believe I'm comparing these two, but like, okay, in Silence of the Lambs, Anthony Hopkins, you can feel him when he's not present. He's not in the film very much, or the Joker in The Dark Knight. This too, you feel. Once he enters, it's like, oh, when's he going to show up again? And when he pops up, it's like, oh, there he is, and you're kind of excited to see him again.
It's great. You have false nostalgia because we weren't alive then. And in fact, you seem to actively hate him.
Yeah, I don't think he's a very good actor.
And yet, when he appears, you go, oh, I've missed him, even though I watched his film yesterday.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, there's a point where my dislike for Gene Kelly ends, and my respect for old Hollywood icon exists. Right, so like. To not respect or know the legacy that someone like Gene Kelly, leaves behind, the filmography, truly one of the biggest Hollywood icons ever. That is totally separate from my own personal taste. So when I see him in this, the old icon who's older now, like you said, he's 10 years older. I think this works much better as a legacy picture than something like Always Sunny, where that's a movie.
Always Fair.
Always Fair. We knew we were going to do it eventually.
We never did last episode.
I know, that's funny. Well, it's Always Fair, where it's like, let's watch him fall on his face, but not fully commit to that. This works better. Just let Gene Kelly be Gene Kelly, the one we know, the one that's old and charming, that everyone's, or not old, but he was young, but charming. He's going to get the girl, and that's fine. And put him as a side character. And I just think that really works. Because it's paying homage to the old Hollywood musical. Mm-hmm. You put him in the film, and let's see how much he wrecks the plot as being this one character. And I think that works great. It's weird to say how much I haven't liked Gene Kelly, and then say I'm totally great with them honoring that same thing I didn't like in this film.
Well, it's the purified form of him, right?
Yes.
I mean, he's rarely has dialogue. He's almost always singing.
Mm-hmm. And he more dance numbers than most people.
More dance numbers. And yeah, when he's dancing down this street in Paris, you go, this is great. I mean, not Paris, France. It's great.
Yeah.
We get a new Gene Kelly dance number, and it's a world where it gets... I mean, I think this film will have more lasting impact than a lot of Hollywood musicals, because you're missing so many things that feel dated about those Hollywood musicals. Whereas a lot of them have very unfortunate sexual politics, or ignorance about class, or just terrible songs. This is everything we love about musicals. If you wrote it down, what do we love? And then just filmed that.
Yeah, and it gets everything we love about that specific type of musical.
Exactly.
That
yes.
one, that thing that we assume that Gene Kelly is always aiming for, which is that let's turn our brain off and be happy.
Yes.
This checks those boxes, and also from a technical perspective, there are some freaking incredible tracking shots in this film. There's incredible control of extras in this film too.
Yes.
Both of those things, they feel. When this movie was made in 1967, those would have been new styles of making films, or relatively more new. Now when we see a tracking shot, go down from the street, up into the air, and through the window, we're less impressed with that. But something about it being in the musical setting with so many different characters who are now, we're going to go in this window, and now they're going to start picking up instruments, singing a song. It adds a whole nother dimension and layer to the complexities of a shot like that. It becomes an event. And then it works also for world building, because the city of Rochefort feels really, really lived in. It feels like it has a pulse. The whole city feels like the block and rear window. Mm-hmm. You feel like all the characters in each little window. You feel the same thing kind of here. Also, it has a great ending.
Yeah. We can discuss it.
Yeah, I really love the ending, because there's three connections that we want to be made in this film. Two are made, and then one maybe got made. I just thought that was a really kind of clever ending as they're exiting, heading towards Paris. The sailor, the new Gene Kelly is hitchhiking, and the car from his woman ideal drives by, and he hitchhikes. He hops in the car with her, and that's the end of the film. There's no big dramatic dance number. They kind of ride off into the sunset, and I thought it understated what really was an overstated film. And I just thought it was kind of it was a cute ending to end on an ellipses rather than an exclamation mark.
Well, the sailor is such a fun character for me, because he's someone who just truly you don't worry about.
Yeah.
He says he's so upset he's not in love yet, but everyone in the world goes, you're going to be in love. You're a good egg. Don't worry about you. But you got to have that. You got to have this moment of will I ever find love kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so when he gets in that car, maybe yes, maybe no. Mm-hmm. But he's going to end up okay.
Yeah.
It's just, God, it's so delightful. Again, I don't have the deep thing about it, but it manages to work for everything.
I feel like I'm turning into a Criterion. If only I got money for every time I recommended one of their films.
Oh yeah,
because I feel like the ratio is staggering for how much I like movies that happen to be picked up by them.
I want to be a film NASCAR person because my jacket will have BBC and Criterion on it.
Well, yeah.
Doctor Who's so good.
Janus Films.
Yeah, Janus Films.
I didn't know that this was Criterion before I watched it. I actually didn't know that. I thought it's a really interesting pick. And it's kind of like, this was kind of like it made me feel good to talk about it here in a way because, you could make it without knowing me. You could make an argument that it doesn't sound like I like musicals very much. I just watched a 2-hour and 15-minute French musical where they didn't speak English. Trust me, that is definitely not the case. And it hasn't, and it was kind of instantaneous. Like I think I would say I never fell in love with this movie again. I thought it kind of had some problems. I thought again there is a guy that murders someone and chops her up into pieces and puts her into a suitcase in this film. That's a thing. And also,
I keep forgetting that.
Yeah, everyone kind of jokes about it. It's really bizarre. Because you end up figuring out who the killer is, and it was someone who was in the group, and it's like, oh, yeah, I knew there was something wrong with that guy. And then that's kind of like, okay. Like, I definitely think there's some weird things about it, but it definitely had some charm that gave the illusion occasionally that I was in love with it.
Well, do you think that's a commentary on perhaps the feckleness of Hollywood plot sometimes? Like, who actually cares about the Philadelphia Story scandal? It's all about the romance, right?
Yeah, I guess it could be. It could be that. Maybe, I would almost say that, like, there would almost have to be something like that was being said but with it, and I don't know if I just lost it in translation or I'm just not bright enough to pick up on it.
Well, also Demy has words of humor, because, like, the one he made called Donkey Skin is the closest I've ever seen to just a pure, grim fairy tale.
Well, Donkey Skin's a true fairy tale. That was a fairy tale before he wrote about it.
No, yes.
Yeah. I know.
It is not
a true fairy
story.
tale was a stupid. True fairy tale was a stupid way of.
She turns into a donkey, but that movie has, like, I kept watching the film going, how is this tone maintained? Because if you make one winking moment, this is the stupidest thing of all time. Because her turning donkey is just her wearing, like, a hoodie of a donkey, and yet it's so good, and it fits with Demy's humor, nailing that adaptation and making that a musical as well.
I think a lot of theater or more theatrical films kind of, you do have to roll with that sometimes, right? I mean, like, we're not going to wink at camera. Of course, if we do that, then this is ruined, and we're not going to do that. So, I definitely get that. I bet if Gene Kelly was in that movie, he'd have ruined it. Because you couldn't stop him from winking at the camera. He'd go, hey, everybody, look at me talking to this woman in a donkey suit.
You and Errol Flynn, go over there.
But, yeah, I mean, I really don't have much more to say about it. I think
you should all check it out.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen a Demy film, this is an excellent one. And just everyone's going to like this film.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. If you're someone who listens to a film podcast, I have trouble thinking they wouldn't like this film. You obviously have. I wouldn't take to your friend who's got, the Transformers complete box set at home to this film, but I think that
Speaking Anthony Hopkins,
I wouldn't be friends with that person either. But yeah, it's a great film.
Well, that's available to check out on Film Shark or probably at your library right now. Next week, we are venturing to a film, as of this recording, I still have not seen before, which is crazy since I put it on the 5. It's Xanadu, the infamous Xanadu. So we're going to see what Gene Kelly is like in the 80s.
I'm afraid we're picking the first movie that is bad. Like we.
This is notoriously bad, and yet we're going to wonder: are they all bad? I don't. We're going to look at the perhaps the good and bad emptiness of a big studio musical and see why this works and doesn't work. And we'll have a guest who does like the film. I think knows it's bad, but likes the film. But
we have a musical theater actress.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mandatory for the 5.
Yes.
We shit on films for 4 weeks and then we bring in the expert.
Exactly. I hope she straightens me out.
Yeah. So look forward to that next week when we review Xanadu. Until then, you can go to artmore.com where you leave a comment on this episode and any others. Yesterday for episode 99 of The Immortals, we reviewed North Northwest, like I said, David Bowie's Young Americans, and the children's book was Oh, the Places You'll Go. Inception's episode for Ad Absurdum should possibly be out now. Take a look for that, or check out their old episodes where bona fide lawyers talk about fake movies and the real law behind them. It's good stuff. The Immortals Pod is the Twitter handle. Let's Take 5.com is the email address. Where can we find you, Eric?
Constant Diversion's my YouTube channel, yo. Channel?
It's the channel.
It's the animal channel.
Oh, God. Now,
wow.
You just got so many more subscribers.
Oh, man. Everybody hates me.
You got to put some animal videos up now.
Oh, man. My life. I just ruined it right then. That was the moment. I'm going to look back at this moment of my life and say,
when did I fail?
That's when it all went downhill.
Well, on that note, I'm Austin Luger.
I'm Eric Martindale.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Nous sommes deux sœurs jumelles, nées sous le signe des Gémeaux. Mi fa sol la mi ré mi fa sol 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 ré do. Toutes deux demoiselles, ayant eu des amants très tôt. Mi fa sol la mi ré mi fa sol 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 ré do. Nous fûmes toutes deux élevées par maman, qui pour nous se priva travailla vaillamment.